First thing you'll need is a calculator. And this is likely obvious to everybody who's been in a Dungeons & Dragons games, regardless if they've been a player or a GM, but calculators become extremely necessary, especially at much higher level games. Because at lower levels, you don't really need a calculator. You can do all the math very quickly in your head. But at higher levels, when you're rolling swaths of dice and you want to count them all in a quick, efficient manner, you kind of need a calculator. But if you want something even better than that, you can get a specific dice calculator like this one. Now you can get physical versions of this calculator. Indestructiboy actually showed me one that he got sent, and I'll post a link to that video here.
The Crit Machine. These guys reached out because they make like a dice calculator thing. It's sweet.
But you can get it as an app, just like this as well. So if you need to roll 6d6, all you do is press 6d6 equals, and it'll give you a number, like 19. And you can even do more complex things like that. Like if you need to do 8d4 plus 16 equals 37. Now, I don't use that all the time because rolling dice is just much more fun, but if you don't have enough dice or you just want to do something very quickly, that's a great option. The second thing may be controversial depending on what type of DM you are, but I highly recommend getting yourself either a wet or dry erase battle map. Now, some DMs still play with Theater of the Mind, and for a lot of people, that's completely fine. I don't like Theater of the Mind myself because I like knowing the exact distance and measurements when it comes to certain spells and abilities, so I use these types of maps. They're made by Chessex, you've probably seen them everywhere, but I have several different versions of these that have different colors on either side so I can choose what type I need for the certain battle that we're going to be running. And they're all wet erase, so just get yourself some wet erase markers and then wipe them off at the end of the session and you're good to go next time. Now, dry erase ones may end up being cheaper if you can find them, but if you still want to be on the real cheap, you don't need to get dry or wet erase. You can get a stack of these from someplace like Staples and they're already gridded out for you. Just get your own pen or pencil and draw whatever scenery you want on there and bang, there's a battle map for you ready to go. And while we're on the subject of combat, I would also recommend getting yourself some status effect rings. Now these are not widespread yet. I'm certain they will be eventually because they're incredibly helpful if you're using minis for combat. The ones I have here I got off of Etsy, but you can find the files for them for 3D printing for free in many different other websites. It's very helpful at a quick glance to know who is concentrating, who is stunned, who is affected by fairy fire, and so on and so forth. These are also relatively inexpensive depending on how many you get and in what style. Or if you have a 3D printer, then they're very inexpensive because you can get them, like I mentioned, for free. Next up, let's talk about initiative and how you go about doing initiative. Everyone has their own way of doing initiative, and a lot of supplemental products have their own twists on initiative, like going round robin table or different styles. Now, I still like the good old style of initiative that has always been true to the core game, but how I ask for initiative and how I track it is a bit different than most. You see, the most common way people go about it is the same way Critical Role goes about it, where you start from the top and you go 25 to 20 and you wait for everybody's answers of who rolled initiative in that range. Once you get all of them, then you go 15 to 20, 10 to 15, 5 to 10, so on and so forth, getting everybody's initiatives in that bulk. And I did it this way for the longest time. However, I recently came across a video, I believe it was by Super Geek Mike, I could be wrong, where you get yourself an initiative tracker sheet. It looks just like this, and you go about initiative in a similar way, but you simply start from the top and ask each number individually. In doing so, it saves you so much time because you simply just go 25, nothing, 24, nothing, 23, yep, write one name, next, 22, nothing, 21, write one name, nothing, 20, nothing, move on. Because what I find happening when I go 25 to 20 and I have 3 hands rise up, I go, okay, which number are you? 22. All right, which number are you? 23. Okay, and you, 24. Got it. And it's just a little bit more cumbersome. This sheet also has little sections on each side where you can write down important events that happen each round in combat. If you want a link to download this yourself, it's free on my Patreon, link down below. And the last thing to talk about is probably my favorite thing. I like ambiance. If you couldn't tell, I put a lot of care and attention and money into making my D&D room feel and sound as immersive as possible. Now, I'm not going to talk about my lights because everything I've mentioned in this video has been on the relative cheap side, and those are not cheap. However, what you can get is a set of very good speakers. Maybe not those speakers, but any type of computer desktop speakers you can find at your typical Best Buy or even Staples will do wonders for your group. Now, the most common one, of course, is to set battle music when you're doing combat, which is great and all. Everyone loves a good boss fight with some awesome music going on in the background. But think about all the other options you could use those speakers for. Trekking through the wilderness, add some forest ambiance. Going through the mountains, add some wind howling. Going through a swamp, add some frogs croaking. All of these types of sound effects and ambient styles can be found on YouTube completely free, that you click on it and just let it play. Turn the volume down a little bit so it's not fighting with any of the other players at the table, but it's just there enough to make everybody really feel like, oh yeah, we're in this environment. It both feels like it if you decide to get some colored lights, and it sounds like it. Now, these are just 5 basic things that you can get that will level up your D&D group experience, but if you want to go really overboard and get something like the lights I mentioned, let me know in the comment section down below and leave a like on this video, and maybe we'll make that in the future.